Late last year, Qatar Airways, based in Doha, the capital of Qatar, and Alaska Airlines, based in Seattle, the capital of Starbucks, formed a partnership in which they were going to work together to offer each other's members reciprocal mileage earning and redemption opportunities. Hold on, you guys find this a little bit distracting, eh? Let's get rid of it, because we wouldn't want anything to distract you from the news this week that the Alaska Airlines and Qatar Airways partnership is now fully live and online, and you can now redeem Alaska miles for Qatar Airways flights, including the famous Qatar Airways Qsuites, widely considered the world's best business class. In this video, I'll walk you through everything you need to know about this new points redemption opportunity. How many Alaska miles are you going to need to actually book Qatar Airways Qsuites, and is it going to be a good deal? We'll also take this opportunity to do a little recap of the Alaska Mileage Plan program, especially now as it undergoes a transition phase, and also since we haven't talked about Alaska for quite a while here on this channel. If that sounds good to you, then make sure to hit the like button down below and subscribe to the Prince of Travel YouTube channel right from the top, just as the video is starting. If you do it right now, that really helps the video's performance here on YouTube. And with that out of the way, let's begin. Actually, before we begin, I do have to remind you to go over and follow our Instagram account at Prince of Travel, which we've just officially launched this week. We're giving away a very exciting set of prizes totaling 100,000 Aeroplan points as part of the launch. So make sure to go follow at Prince of Travel on Instagram and enter the contest so that you're eligible for the 100,000 point giveaway. And with that out of the way, let's actually begin. You can now search and book Qatar Airways flights directly on the Alaska Airlines Mileage Plan website. And I wanted to highlight a few important price points in terms of common redemptions from North America. If we take a look at direct flights to Doha, including the Montreal-Doha route, which is the only Canadian route that Qatar Airways operates, as well as the Seattle-Doha route from the West Coast, which is going to prove very popular for Canadians who live on the West Coast, then we can see that it's pricing out at 85,000 Alaska miles for the one-way flights in business class. Virtually all of the North American routes these days offer the Qatar Airways Qsuites product, which is considered one of the world's leading business class products. You have extremely private suites with individual sliding doors if you're traveling alone, or if you're traveling as a couple, you can choose two seats in the middle that are very close to each other, effectively creating a pseudo double bed in the sky. It's called a pseudo double bed in the sky because only your torso and above is exposed to your partner in the seat next to you. Whatever's below your legs is still separated by a wall between the two seats. So unfortunately, don't get any funny ideas. This isn't quite Singapore Airlines Suites class with its true double bed in the sky, or Emirates First Class with its shower and a maximum occupancy of 2 just yet. Anyway, back to the point. Qsuites gets even more impressive if you're traveling as a group of 4, because then you can all sit in the middle section together, you can lower the dividers, and then you basically have one big common area in the sky to your little party that you can enjoy for the 12 to 14 hours on the way to Doha. And it is very exciting that as of now, you will be able to redeem 85,000 Alaska miles for a one-way flight from North America to Doha, and no fuel surcharges along the way either. But it gets more interesting when you consider that 85,000 Alaska miles would get you a one-way Qsuites flight not just to Doha, but also to other points in the Middle East, North Africa, and the Indian subcontinent, including the Maldives, Sri Lanka, India, Pakistan, and as far east as Bangladesh. And I would say that's the best sweet spot among this new Alaska and Qatar Airways redemption partnership. Being able to fly to the Maldives or other points in the Indian subcontinent for 85,000 Alaska miles in a product as good as Qatar Airways Qsuites is a very good deal. There are other redemption opportunities, but they do get less interesting from here. For example, you could book North America to Doha to other points in sub-Saharan Africa like Kenya or South Africa, but that's going to cost you more miles. It's going to cost you 120,000 Alaska miles to do it all the way in business class, and that's fairly expensive when you compare it to other programs that you could use in which points might also be easier to earn. And for other parts of the world like Europe and East Asia, you can't combine them on a single Qsuites redemption through Alaska Mileage Plan from North America. So you couldn't do Montreal-Doha to London or Montreal-Doha to Tokyo or something like that. You would have to split those into 2 separate bookings, and it also does get more expensive from there. So that's the key information you need to know about these simple one-way flights. Now I wanted to delve into some of the deeper details around Alaska redemptions on Qatar Airways. First up, the Stopover Policy. Alaska Mileage Plan is well known for offering a free stopover on one-way redemptions. And the question is, does that apply to these Qatar Airways redemptions as well? The answer is yes, but partially. You can add a stopover on a one-way journey from North America to Doha to other points in the Middle East or North Africa. You can add a stopover in Doha for a couple of days before continuing to your final destination. However, that stopover policy does not seem to be in place if you're traveling to the Indian subcontinent, including the Maldives, Sri Lanka, India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh. So if you're going to one of these places, it doesn't seem like you can actually add a stopover on the Alaska website in Doha for a couple of days. Maybe that'll change in the future because we haven't seen anything like this before, any kind of geographic restriction on the stopover policy. But for now, it doesn't seem to be bookable. Now, the next thing I wanted to touch upon is this notion of dynamic pricing on Qatar Airways redemptions through Alaska Miles. Sometimes if you search for Qatar Airways flights, you'll see that some flights are priced outrageously at 200,000 to 280,000 Alaska Miles one way. What on earth is going on here? Well, there's no need to panic because this just relates to how the notion of award space on Qatar Airways works in the background. If there is award space at the saver level, which is traditionally what we think about when we talk about award space, then the Alaska award on Qatar Airways will price at the standard amount, and that's going to be 85,000 miles for a one-way business class flight to the Middle East, North Africa, and Indian subcontinent. However, if there is no traditional saver level award space, which is the award space that you see on all other programs, then the Alaska pricing actually shoots up to some outrageous level which only the most desperate travelers would actually pay. So for all intents and purposes, if you do see that 200,000 or 280,000 price point, you can just ignore it and treat it as though that flight search result just didn't show up at all. So now that we've gotten those details out of the way, we can ask ourselves, is it a good deal to redeem Alaska Miles on Qatar Airways and fly Qatar Airways Qsuites? And there are a few different angles that we can take to approach this question. The first question we can ask is, how does this compare to other ways to book Qatar Airways Qsuites, especially from a Canadian perspective? And for me, I think the answer here is it actually compares pretty favorably. Previously, you could have also booked Qsuites with British Airways Avios, but it would have cost you about 150,000 Avios to fly all the way to the Middle East because of how the distance-based chart works. Similarly, you could have also redeemed up to 90,000 Cathay Pacific Asia miles to fly to Doha and onwards on Qatar Airways. However, the big issue with both Avios and Cathay Pacific Asia miles is that they impose fuel surcharges of up to several $100s on Qatar Airways flights, whereas Alaska Miles is comparable at around 85,000 miles to go to the Middle East, North Africa, or the Indian subcontinent, but there's no fuel surcharges at all. The other prevailing option to book Qsuites was American Airlines Advantage, or A-Advantage if you want to call it that, which is actually a little bit cheaper than Alaska mileage plan is right now. It only costs 70,000 American miles to travel in business class to the Middle East or the Indian subcontinent, including the Maldives, or 75,000 American miles to go all the way to Africa, whereas as you'll recall, it costs 120,000 Alaska miles to do the same. The big equalizing factor here for Canadians is that it's arguably a bit easier to earn Alaska miles than American Advantage miles. Because here in Canada, we have a co-branded Alaska Airlines credit card issued by MBNA, whereas we don't have the same for American Airlines. You could earn RBC Avion points and transfer at a 1 to 0.7 ratio to American Advantage, but that unfavorable transfer ratio kind of makes it less attractive, unless you have specific RBC strategies that you're implementing. Now, the other question we can ask about this sweet spot for using 85,000 Alaska miles to book Qsuites to the Indian subcontinent is, how does this compare to other ways that we can also travel to that part of the world on points? And I think a natural point of comparison here would be our very own Aeroplan program here in Canada. If we take a look at the Aeroplan flight reward charts, we can see that the vast majority of routings from North America to the Maldives, Sri Lanka, India, Pakistan, or Bangladesh are going to fall around 100,000 Aeroplan points, which is higher than the 85,000 Alaska miles that Alaska mileage plan would charge. And what's more, when you book with Aeroplan, you probably wouldn't get a product that's as nice as Qatar Airways Qsuites. Remember, Qsuites is widely considered the best business class in the world, and with Aeroplan, you're probably going to be traveling on Lufthansa, Swiss, at best Etihad Airways business class. It's not really going to be on the same level. Speaking of which, Aeroplan, I know you've been trying to add exciting airline partnerships into the program. How about throwing some Qatar Airways Qsuites action in there, if at all possible? I'm just saying. The last question that we can ask as we assess the strength of this sweet spot is, how does this compare to other potential uses of Alaska miles? And in this case, it's arguably not quite as good. Because remember, you can book Cathay Pacific and Japan Airlines first class for only 70,000 Alaska miles right now on the way to Asia. And in fact, if you wanted to travel to, let's say, South Africa, you could book Cathay Pacific first class to Hong Kong, have a stopover there, and then book Cathay Pacific business class all the way to Johannesburg for only 70,000 Alaska miles. That's going to be much more luxurious and much better value than redeeming 120,000 miles for Qsuites to South Africa instead. One does have to wonder though, with Alaska joining oneworld, how much longer will these very favorable Asian-based reward charts continue to last? Or are we going to see those reward charts changing sometime shortly in the future? We don't know the answers to these questions just yet. We've been assured that we're going to get at least 90 days notice if there's going to be changes to existing charts. So we'll have that last minute scramble to book some Cathay Pacific first class and Japan Airlines first class flights. But until then, if you've built up a balance of Alaska miles and you're trying to decide between whether to go with the first class redemptions for 70,000 miles or the Qatar Airways Qsuites redemption for 85,000 miles under this new opportunity, personally, I think as nice as Qsuites is, it's not going to compare to first class with the Asian airlines. So I would still go with 70,000 miles on the way to Asia, hopefully for a trip that happens next year in 2022. Of course, the seasoned Alaska miles collectors out there will be thinking, why not both? And in that respect, let's wrap up the video with a little bit of a reminder as to the best ways to earn Alaska miles here in Canada. The MBNA Alaska Airlines World Elite MasterCard offers 30,000 Alaska miles as the sign-up bonus with only $1,000 in minimum spend. And with MBNA, there's no restriction in the terms and conditions where you can only get one sign-up bonus every 6 months or every 12 months or anything like that. So I would say that if you're interested in playing a little bit of fast and loose on this card, it's possible to do so. If you don't quite qualify for the $80,000 minimum income requirement on the World Elite version, there's also the Platinum Plus version of this card, which has a sign-up bonus of 20,000 miles. Those are probably the fastest avenues to rack up an Alaska miles balance. Outside of that, you can also look into transferring Marriott Bonvoy points at a 3-to-1 ratio, or an optimal ratio of 60,000 Bonvoy points equals 25,000 Alaska miles. Then you also have the possibility of purchasing Alaska miles directly from the program when they're on sale. Usually you can get a pretty good return on this if you're buying miles specifically for a high value redemption in mind. And also, there's the Bank of America Alaska credit card issued in the United States. Canadians are eligible for this card, although if you're applying with an individual taxpayer identification number or an ITIN instead of a social security number, you do have to go and apply physically in person at a Bank of America branch in the United States. Across all those methods, we'll continue to rack up our Alaska miles balance, and we'll just cross our fingers and hope that the impending changes to the existing Alaska charts aren't going to be too bad. I hope you enjoyed the video. If so, please do hit the like button and subscribe to the Prince of Travel YouTube channel. Just click the subscribe button below the video. Let me know in the comments below, what do you make of this new partnership? Are you interested in redeeming Alaska miles on Qatar Airways Qsuites to the Middle East, the Maldives, or India? Or would you prefer to save your miles for first class on Cathay Pacific and Japan Airlines to Asia? And on that note, also let me know, what do you think is going to happen to the price points for Cathay Pacific and Japan Airlines first class once Alaska Airlines fully rolls into oneworld? I'll see you in the next video. Unfortunately, you can't, you know. Stopover. Wallah. Wallah. Wallah, wallah, wallah. Can't do this.